Greetings, it's Iain from RTO here. I hope you all had a really good weekend. And here we are back on Monday morning doing some more album ranking. And today it's not a viewer's request. It's a request from RTO's very own Mastermind Dave. People going, who's Mastermind Dave? No, Mastermind Dave. He's a friend of mine. We've been friends very many years. He is in the back room of RTO. He does a lot of work. He looks after the Facebook pages, keeps an eye on that. Also keeps an eye on the channel and what's going on. He's also the tech man of the outfit. His wizardry on the computers is brilliant, and he's the person that sits on the live stream, coming up with all the data, all the stuff that you ask. And he was nicknamed Mastermind Dave by Charles, who was one of our regulars on the live stream. One of his favourite bands is Sky. So when he asked, "Are you going to do Sky?" it was going to be yes, because he does so much sterling work for me. So Sky, for those of you that have never heard of them, are wondering who is Sky. They're an English-Australian instrumental rock group. They specialise in combining a variety of music styles. So they're what we call a fusion band. They take pieces from rock, classical, jazz and progressive rock. Best known lineup of this band was John Williams on classical guitars, Herbie Flowers on bass from Blooming, played on a lot of albums, but he's most famous for being the bass player on War of the Worlds. Kevin Peake, an Australian guitar player, very distinctive sound. Tristan Fry on the drums and percussion, and Francis Monkman was the keyboard player. There's a couple of other people that came in, which we'll talk about as we go along as usual. Now they've released 9 albums, including 2 live albums. Now I've included them in the ranking today because I have tracks on there that you can't find anywhere else. So here we go. So coming in at number 9 then, we have the 8th album, released in 1987, and it's basically just called Mozart. And there goes my phone. And on here we've got Herbie Flowers on basses and tuba, Tristan Fry on the drums and percussion, Steve Gray on the keyboards, and Kevin Peake on guitars. Opens up with the overture from The Marriage of Figaro. Sounds too much like Hook Song Classic, and I don't like that cheesy drum in it. It just doesn't sound right. Now you're gonna have to my German here, it's not very good. And the second track is In ein kleines Musik Ronda. Again, very Hook Song Classic. Don't like it. I really don't. Then we get The Marriage of Figaro, Non so pui cosa. Isn't too bad. They've kept it very much like the version that everyone knows. Then we get Symphony number 34, The Last Movement. The drum beat again doesn't fit. It's too Hook Song Classic. Then we get Symphony number 35. Nice piano work from Steve Gray, but it's still Hook Song Classic. The Magic Flute Overture, more Hook Song Classic. It just doesn't sound right. Then we get In ein kleines Musik Romanza. Like this. Kevin's classical guitar on this is pretty impressive. Really like that one. Then we get the Horn Concerto number 4 in E flat. It's just basically Herbie Flowers on his tuba, and it sounds very good. Then we get Don Giovanni, La Si Darà La Mona. Nice keyboard work here from Steve Gray. Just gives it a modern twist, and I like that. Then we get A Musical Joke Presto. For the uneducated like myself, this is better known as the theme to BBC's Horse of the Year show. It's not a very good version of it. I don't like it. Come Sweet May. The only person you can really hear from Sky on here is Kevin Peake. It's not a bad version. Then we get Alla Turca Ronda, which is Tristan Fry on the marimba, and he sounds brilliant on that. It's an okay album, but I don't play it very much. I think the last time I played this, I played it last week, and I can't remember the last time I actually put it on. So I'm only going to give it a 5 out of 10. Okay, coming in at number 8, we have the second live album that was released in 2002, Live in Nottingham. This was recorded in Nottingham on the Live in the Studio concert back in 1990. And on this it features Kevin Peake on electric guitars and acoustic guitars, Tristan Fry on the drums and percussion, Steve Gray pianos and synthesizers, Herbie Flowers basses, ukulele and tuba, and the one and only album to feature Paul Hart on violin, synthesizers and mandolin. Opens up with The Son of Hotter. We'll talk about that later. It's an interesting version of it, a bit of a twist on it, but I'm not very keen on it. Then we get Cannonball, which we'll talk about later. I don't like that version on it. Then we do get a track that is really good. This is not on any other album. It's called Jihad. I love this. It's got that Arabic misty keyboard on it, that lovely sound, an atmospheric deep sound, and I love this. It's got some great guitar work from Kevin Peake. Best track on the album, without a doubt. Then we get Rivereri, a nice little piece this is. It's got some lovely keyboards from Steve Gray and some good guitar work as ever from Kevin. Then we get one of my favourite tracks, which we'll talk about later, Miko. Not a bad version of it actually on this. Would You Say I'm in Love with You? Nice work here from Tristan Fry. Good stuff. Then we get Predilum. Nice little tune here. Starts off slow and then it keeps building up to a nice upbeat thing. The drums from Tristan are brilliant, and then in comes Steve Gray on harpsichord, and I love harpsichord. Really good. Then there's a track called Hotter, and I don't like this version. It's not very good. We'll talk about that later. It's an okay album. I do like the new tracks on here. They are pretty good, but some of the versions of their hits don't like. So I'm going to give this an RTO ranking of 6 out of 10. Okay, then coming in at number 7, we have the 7th album released in 1985, The Great Balloon Race. This is the first album without John Williams on it. We have Kevin Peake, Steve Gray, Herbie Flowers and Tristan Fry. Guest musicians on here are Ron Asprey, who plays saxophones and flutes on Peter's Wedding, Adrian Brett on panpipes, extra guitars from Lee Fothergill, and we got Tony Himas on synthesizers and vocals on Desperate for Your Love, and vocals by the one and only Miss Claire Torrey. Opens up with a track called Desperate for Your Love. This is very proggy. It starts off with some lovely synthesizer sounds, of this interesting little bit of vocal from Tony Himas. It's more spoken word. What is good on here is Claire Torrey. It's that voice of hers just flows through this. It's moody. The keyboards from Steve Gray are superb. Herbie Flowers is brilliant on this. It's a really strong track. Then we get Allegro or Allegro. Harpsichord on this is just fantastic. Got some great guitar work from Kevin Peake as well. Such a distinctive sound. Such a shame that he's no longer with us, like Steve Gray. Sadly no longer with us. They were two fantastic musicians. The Land, like this. I love Steve Gray's keyboards in this, and the didgeridoo sound at the beginning, really good. Then we get Peter's Wedding. This is a superb piece of music. Again, very proggy. You get some lovely keyboard at the start with Steve Gray, and then you get this sax sort of dabs of sax. You get some lovely flutes in here. Sounds very Jethro Tull. But the best bit of this is the bit of the bass. You got dum 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 dum, and then you get this lovely piece of piano work from Steve Gray. It sounds straight out of a silent movie. Absolutely stunning. Really good track. Next track, The Great Balloon Race. Favourite track on the album. Starts off with that sort of shimmery on the cymbals, then you get marimba from Tristan, some lovely keyboards, and then you get this sort of bass keyboardy sound. Some great guitar work from Kevin, fantastic stuff, and the bass line from Herbie is terrific. Next track, The Lady and the Imp. It's a this is fusion jazz. It's all over the place. They're all playing different tunes, and I'm not very keen on that one. Calandro, lovely piece of guitar work here from Kevin. Fantastic little track. Rolling Stone, great guitar riff on this. But the drumming, I don't know there's something just not quite right with the drumming on this. It doesn't fit. And then we have a lovely little a classical guitar piece called Night Sky from Kevin. Fantastic way to end the album, very gentle. On the whole, this is a good album. It's got some really nice pieces on it. There's a couple of fillers on here, I think, but on the whole, it's a pretty good listen, and I'm giving it an RTO ranking of 8 out of 10. Okay, then coming in at number 6, we have the 6th album, released in December 1983, Candium. This would be John Williams' last album with the band. So we've got Tristan Fry, Kevin Peake, Steve Gray, Herbie Flowers and John Williams. Opens up with Troika, the sleigh ride. The drums don't sound right in this. Why add drums into something that doesn't need drums? I don't like that version at all, although the guitar's pretty good. Then we get Fair. It's a nice little tune. Kevin's guitar work is great in that. Then we get a favourite of mine, A Girl in Winter. Love the beat to this. Even the I don't know if it's a drum machine, but it must be, because it's listening. I don't think Tristan would play that, because it just doesn't sound like a real drum, but it's lovely, and the guitar work from John Williams is superb. Mother Russia, great. You've got both Kevin Peake and John Williams playing this Russian-y sound on their guitars. It's a great track. TEDx from Peru, again some fantastic classical guitar work from John Williams. What I do like about this is the tapping and the rims of the drums. Lovely work from Steve Gray, and you get such a great deep bass line from Herbie. Really strong stuff. The Boy from Dundee, more great John Williams guitar on this. Great classical guitar player is John Williams, one of the best in the business. Then we get Night. This has got some harpsichord, and it's got a real sort of Tudor sort of sound from. You can imagine this sort of thing being played at the court of Henry VIII. It's really good. I like that track. Then we get Then and Now. As you do with most Sky albums, you get the pianist, the keyboard player doing a little piece. This is Steve Gray's turn, and it's a really nice piece. Great piano work from Steve on that. Return to Me. I love this. What I like about this one is Herbie's bass line and John's classical. They sort of intertwine. Very, very good. And then we get my favourite track on the album, Son of Hotter. Love that bass line from Herbie. It's just a variation of Hotter, which is a track we'll talk about later. There's some drum machine on that, but it actually fits in with this. But the most prominent thing is that lovely bass line from Herbie. Fantastic track. Then we get, I've got the CD version as well, and I've talked about this one because it's got 2 tracks that are really good. But the one we don't want is the extended version of Troika. Do we really need this in my life? No. But we do need this track. Why don't we? It's a real rocker. It's probably the heaviest track that this band ever did. Great guitar work from Kevin and a thumping bass line, which is fantastic. And the last track on the album is a very, very good interpretation of the Beatles' Fool on the Hill. And all the sort of what would be singing is done by John on the classical guitar, and it is fantastic. Apart from Troika, I think this is a great album. John Williams left the band with some of his finest playing. Some really strong stuff from John. So I'm going to give this an RTO ranking of 8.3. Okay then, coming in at number 5. Go to the 4th album, Sky 4, Forthcoming. On here. This is all just this is our cover album. It's all classical pieces, but very good ones. We've got John Williams, Steve Gray, Herbie Flowers, Tristan Fry and Kevin Peake. Opens up with a Masquerade, which is a Katurian piece. Love this. Love that start on the classical guitar. And you got some really nice keyboard work here from Steve Gray. Really good. Then we get my favourite bit. It's actually one of my favourite pieces of classical music. It's Wagner's Ride of the Valkyries. But this is really good. The bass line from Herbie on this really adds to it. Some great guitar work from Kevin on this. And Tristan's drumming on it is terrific. Absolutely brilliant. Then we get March of the Scaffold by Berlo. I find this dull. Not very inspirational. They don't seem to capture the actual piece of music as well as I thought they could. Let me excuse my pronunciations. To Yastalopedi, the theme from Zed, from Theodorus or Theorakitis. It's a nice piece of music anyway, and John Williams is fantastic on it. I love the harpsichord again on this, and Herbie's bass line, really, really good. Then we get Waltz number 2 from Viserys Nobles et Mentals by Ravel. Again, my pronunciation is absolutely atrocious. I like this. I love the piano, and John and Kevin are just fantastic. Then we get Fantasy from J.S. Bach. What spoils this is the drums. You don't need drums on this. You're fine without it. Then we get My Gazelle from a theme by Adam de la Haye. Nice guitar work from Kevin on this. Really good. Then we get Zango from Villalobos. Tristan Fry is on the marimba on this, and Herbie Flowers on the bass. They really adds to it. They're very, very good. Then we get Fantasia from Marada. I really like this. This is a fantastic version of it. Then we get Skylark by Carmichael. Again, it's John Williams on the classical guitar. and Herbie on the bass. Really, really good. I think this is a pretty strong album. They took some really nice pieces of classical music and really did some good versions. There's one or two on here that I don't think worked, but on the whole, I think it's a very good album, and I'm going to give this an RTO ranking of 8.5. Okay then, coming in at number 4, we get to the third album released in 1981, Sky 3. This is the first album to feature Steve Gray on keyboards. So it's John Williams, Steve Gray, Herbie Flowers, Tristan Fry and Kevin Peake. Now this opens up with a little piece of classical music called Grace, played by John, and it's nice. It's only 30 seconds, but it goes straight in to Chiropodidi number 1. This is lovely. You got that nice chinky guitar from Kevin, and the rest of the band comes in, and then you get one of Kevin Peake's lovely toned guitar solos. And the way it starts, he sort of holds that note forever. Great track. Then we get the fantastic West Wind. What's the best thing about this? Herbie Flowers. That bass line. Ooh. Really rich and deep. And then you've got John coming in with that classical guitar, giving them some delicate touches. Then you've got some stonking guitar work from Kevin on top of it. Brilliant. Then we get a wonderful interpretation of Sarabande from Handel, done by John Williams. Absolutely stunning piece. Love it to death. Connecting Rooms is next. This is a great fusion of classical and progressive rock. It just mixes with them, sounds classic, bit of proper classical music, and then you get that prog theme rolling over the top of it. Really good work. Track really worked well, that one did. Then we get Moonroof, which is quite a rocker for this band. The guitar's riff on this is brilliant. Great drumming from Tristan. Just shows versatile drummer he was. Played classical, could play prog, jazz and even rock. Great track. Sister Rose. Wow. Don't you just love that funky bass line from Herb. Terrific bass player. And then you get some great work from Kevin Peake. Then we get Hello, which is the very first piece of music that Steve Gray wrote for the band. And basically this is Steve Gray and John Williams. It's lovely. Dance of the Big Fairies. This features Herbie Flower on the tuba. Tambourine, John Williams. Harpsichord, great. Then we get my favourite track on the album, Miko. This is just a fusion of prog, classic and jazz. Starts off classical, goes into prog, and then it goes into this unbelievable piece of jazz music. And it's that double bass, that big double bass comes in, and that beautiful piano on the top. And John just had some lovely guitar pieces. Fantastic track. Then we have a little ditty. We started the album with a classical guitar piece, and we end with a bit of music by Kevin on the guitar. It's just great. Great album from top to bottom. Not a bad track on this. Love this album. So I'm going to give it an RTO ranking of 9 out of 10. Coming in at number 3 then, we have the first live album, and it's called Sky 5 Live, and it was recorded at the Comedy Theatre and Concert Hall in Melbourne, the Concert Hall Perth, the Festival Theatre in Adelaide, and the Capitol Theatre in Sydney. On here it's got Tristan Fry, Kevin Peake, Steve Gray, John Williams and Herbie Flowers. Side 1 opens up with my favourite one of my favourite pieces of music by Sky. It's called The Animals. It's the only place you find it is on this. What a great start. That drum. Then the funky bass comes in from Herbie. These little delicate guitar riffs from Kevin. And then John just comes in over the top. Brilliant. The piano in the middle from Steve is brilliant. This is a proggy classical track. I love it. It's fantastic. Great way to open the album. It's a long piece as well. It's 20 minutes. So proggy. Brilliant. Then we get The Swan, which is by Camille Saint-Saëns. This is basically Tristan on his marimba. It's beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. What can you say about it? Then we get KP1. This has got an interesting start. It's very rocky for Sky. And I love it. This is another great bit of prog music, really. This is not classical at all, it's just prog. Tristan's brilliant on it. Steve Gray's great. Then we get Dance of the Little Fairies, which is a track that's on another album we'll talk about in a bit, but it's pretty good. Then we get Love Duet. The interplay between Steve Gray and Kevin Peake on this is brilliant. And then you get John Williams just adding a little bit of texture underneath it. It's lovely, lovely stuff. Then we get the Bathroom Song. This is a bit of nonsense from Herbie. He's just going la-di-da, tuba, always a bit of fun. I mean, when I saw him, when we saw Sky, he'd come on and done that as well, sort of thing. Bit of tuba Smarties, which we'll talk about later. It's all really good. KP2 is next. Very poppy this is. It's not my favourite piece on the album though. And then Antigua, lovely work. This is from John Williams. Then we get Sahara, which is an out track we'll be talking about very shortly. Shakara, Variations, another track we'll get and talk about. Then we get Miko. I love it on Sky 3, but this is even better. The live version of this is just absolutely bang on. It's thumping. I love it. Then we get Hotter. We'll talk about this more later, but there's one bit that you don't get on the studio version, and that's the drum solo in the middle of it. Oh, absolutely stunning. Brilliant track. It's a great track anyway, but I do love that drum solo. What a live album this is. It's stunning. I played this a lot because I just love Animals. It's the only version you'll get of it. It's absolutely fantastic album. So I'm going to give this an RTO ranking of 9.2. Okay, then coming in at number 2, we have the debut album that's simply called Sky. Released in 1979. This is John Williams on acoustic guitars, Francis Monkman on the piano, synthesizer and harpsichord, Herbie Flower on the bass, Tristan Fry and Kevin Peake. Opens up with Westway. That bass line. Oh. Then you get John Williams coming in, and then you get the harpsichord from Francis. Absolutely stunning. Love that track. Then we get Carillion. I think this is fantastic. First you get some lovely classical guitar on John Williams and some beautiful piano work from Francis. The crescendo of this though is Kevin Peake's solo on this. I think this is one of the best solos that Kevin Peake ever did. It's absolutely stunning, and it's one of my favourites. Then we have an interpretation of Danza. Lovely version of this. Starts off with that love how it starts, like classical guitar, Spanish sounding as well. I just love how it builds up. You got Francis on his harpsichord again. Some great stuff from Kevin Peake on the guitar. What an inspirational version of this it is. Then we get Jimmer PD #1. The pure, great little piece of music. Francis Monkman's great on this. His keyboard stuff is brilliant. Then we get Cannonball. This is the first track I ever heard by Sky. Wow. It's that keyboard swirl at the beginning, and then it's the what I like about it is the classical guitar. It gets it comes up, and then you think, oh, this is good, and then all of a sudden you get Kevin Peake coming in with a great guitar solo. Fantastic, great stuff. Then you put it on the side 2, and then it's got my favourite song by this band, When Opposites Meet. It is an epic. This is very prog, and I like the interplay between the classical guitar and the keyboards, and it slows down and slows down, and then you get this eerie piece, and then it comes back, and it, like most great classic pieces of prog, it builds up with a great, ends with a great guitar solo. Francis Monkman wrote this, and he's all over this. His keyboard work on this track is terrific. My favourite piece of the music. While Way to End the album, I love this album. Solid top to bottom tracks. I've loved this album since it came out. What a fusion of rock and classical music and progressive music. So I'm going to give this an RTO ranking of 9.9. So my favourite and #1 album is Sky 2, released in 1980. Francis Monkman's last album. This was the fastest at the time to receive platinum status in the UK. And they actually got a top 5 single off this as well. So it's John Williams, Francis Monkman, Herbie Flowers, Kevin Peake. Don't miss anyone off? No. Opens up with the amazing Hotter. Great use of a drum machine, because then Tristan comes in on top of it. Great guitar solo from Kevin on this. It's an amazing opener to an album. Superb stuff. Then we get Dance of the Little Fairies. Francis Monkman's piano on this is wonderful. Then you get John's great guitar, classical guitar, absolutely brilliant. Sahara. Love this. This is one of them amazing pieces. Starts off so dramatic on the piano. You get the delicate touches of guitar solo, and then what really adds to this is the brilliant guitar solo from Kevin Peake. Terrific. Then we get FIFO, which is another Monkman special. It's broke up into 4 parts. First part is FIFO. Starts off with them lovely rocky drums and bass, nice riff from Kevin, nice little piece of the keyboard from Francis is terrific. Then it slows down into a piece called Adagio. Get some lovely textures on the keyboards, very atmospheric, some eerie classical guitar from John Williams, which goes into the third movement, Sergio. Picks up the tempo again. We got that steady bass from Herbie and Tristan. that engine room of Sky working well, and we got delicate touches of keyboard on this one. And then the best bit of the whole piece, watching the aeroplanes. The keyboard in this is brilliant. Kevin's guitar is great. This is quite heavy and proggy, and it's fantastic. What a way to end this great piece. The whole piece together is fantastic. Side 3 starts off, this has got a live track on it, it's called Tuba Smarties. It's Herbie Flowers having a bit of nonsense on the tuba, it's very, very funny. Then we get Bella Vota, arranged by John Williams. Classical guitar playing at its best. It's terrific. Then we get Gravotti and Variations, this is from Rameau. Harpsichord from Francis. I love the harpsichord. I think it's an interesting instrument, gives lots of atmosphere. That's a fantastic piece. Then we have another piece of classical music, Adande Vivaldi. Again, John's all over this, classical guitar playing at its best. Then we have a thing called Tristan's Magic Garden. This is all about percussion. It's about marimba, timpani drums. Brilliant. Then we get El Celio, which is a traditional piece of music arranged by John Williams. Another wonderful piece of John Williams music here. Traditional piece of music, and he turns it into magic. Great stuff. Then we get Vivaldi. Oh, this is my favourite piece, one of my favourite pieces on here. The combination of the harpsichord and the drums and the electric guitar at the start. Then you get that lovely piece of classical guitar that sort of, I don't know, it just gives it an extra touch, and then you go straight back into some great electric guitar from Kevin. I don't know, that was Her That Can't Be Spoken, just said Europe, I don't know why. Funny. Then we get Supicchio, another epic here. Starts off with John Williams with that lovely classical guitar. Then the beat starts coming up, so magical. Francis comes in, lovely stuff. Builds up into this crescendo, the guitar work, and the piece at the end between Francis and Kevin is fantastic, and it's a great way to end the piece of music. It's got that same sort of feeling end to like Sheep by Pink Floyd. It's wonderful. And then the album ends up with probably their best cover version, as I call it, Toccata. I love this piece of music anyway. I love it on the church organ, I love it on violins, I just love this piece of music. But this is the best Toccata. That start on the but it's done on the harpsichord. Off. Then you get that boom, boom, boom from Herbie. The drumming from Tristan is on brilliant in this, and the interplay on this between Kevin and John is brilliant all the way through this. And I do love that drum bit in the middle. Brilliant. It's my favourite piece on here. I just love it. Got to number 5 in the charts as well. Remember seeing this on Top of the Pops. Ah, you never thought I'd see Sky on Top of the Pops. This is an amazing album. I've got so many good memories of this album as well. Used to listen to this a lot. Around about 83. Yeah, it would have been about 83. I was about 16. Me and probably one of my first girlfriends, really. Her dad had this album, and we used to go and sit in, because they had the house they lived in. They had a front room and back room. You remember that? And he'd got a fantastic stereo, and we'd go and sort of sit in there, and we'd listen to Sky 1 and Sky 2 after each other. Absolutely brilliant. That's why I've got memories of that, because that we just love listening to this music. Not which is really weird for two 16-year-olds, really, but we both love music, and that's got some fond memories of that from my childhood. So I can only give this one ranking a 10 out of 10, because it's just absolutely fantastic. Well, there you go, Dave. Hope you've enjoyed that. I'm sure you'll comment on it. I'm sure we're not going to be far off on our top albums. I'll be back later with part 4 of the Eric Clapton story, and we're going to look at his little sideline band, Derek and the Dominoes, and an album that flopped but became a classic, Layla and Assorted. What's it called? It's Assorted Love Songs, that's it. So join me for that. I'll be back later. Bye for now.